So it's been a good while since the final shape was released, and we're well into episodes. In fact, episode 2 of Revenant is out in the wild right now. The Festival of the Lost seasonal event has gone away. The Dawning annual event is currently active, so this is the perfect time to go over a few things. The main one being how you feel about Destiny 2. We've beaten the Witness, and the 10-year journey has, for all intents and purposes, reached its conclusion. There was the natural buildup of excitement and wonder when Final Shape was going to be released. Players were thrilled to finally reach the conclusion of this epic saga. Old players were going to dust off their controllers, mice, PCs, Xboxes, and PlayStations for one last ride into the sunset. This buildup was mostly everything that Destiny 2's makers, Bungie, were hoping for. Guardians were excited, and the hope of promise in Destiny 2 was back. Along the way, though, Bungie has made a ton of promises. Through all the scandals, letdowns, missteps, and there were many, there were the promises. There were also lies and obfuscation. It is becoming clearer every day that Bungie is not whom they pretend to be. With each event or activity added to the game, there are more occurrences of game-breaking bugs. Laying off large amounts of staff has become mission critical at Bungie. However, it appears the Bungie has laid off critical staff responsible for playtesting, game security, and many other critical aspects that make the game operate smoothly. Behind the scenes, Bungie is unraveling, while at the same time grasping at straws and hoping that we will play long enough for the release of Marathon. As if that's not bad enough, Bungie, along with Sony Interactive Entertainment, has been sued by former development leader Chris Barrett for $45 million. Yes, that Chris Barrett. This is all in regard to his release over sexual misconduct allegations while at work, among other accusations of inappropriate behavior. Sony has to be extremely upset about the optics of this news, of this type relating to Bungie. For whatever reasons, Bungie just cannot seem to get out of its own way. Bungie has not kept the right people after all, apparently. I can only imagine how heated and uncomfortable the meetings between Sony and Bungie have been and are going to be for the foreseeable future. Marathon has got to hit the ground running, and it has to engage in a way much like Halo and OG Destiny did if Bungie is to survive as anything near the studio we all came to believe it was. Bungie has gotten rid of critical employees, gutted itself, overpromised and underdelivered on many of the DLC drops it has provided over the last few years, only to come back with some decent to pretty good content after player backlash and criticism. The yo-yo effect Bungie has embraced is old and tired. The Final Shape is the wake-up call. Once the hype died down and players experienced the campaign story and the events surrounding the Final Shape, we reached what Bungie has always feared, the tipping point. If you played Destiny 2 before the Final Shape, and even if you came back after a long layoff or deleting the game just to play the Final Shape, how often are you playing it now? It's to be expected that there would be a drop-off after the Final Shape. This one somehow feels different though. We have the episodes model that no longer time gates the story. You can play it and be done fairly quickly depending on how fast you want to get through the story beats. After that, what's left, really? A few events, seasonal repeats, business as usual per se. Destiny 2 has lost it. For many, it has become boring and repetitive. The story content is weak and really only felt important because of the time gating before episodes. What episodes has done has shown how alarmingly thin the story content has been for years. I know there are going to be a large amount of people that will point out that Bungie is just a shell of itself due to the layoffs and general mismanagement, and you would be correct. However, that does not preclude the fact that what we have now is arguably not Destiny 2. At least not what it used to be. Now it's just seasonal manipulation, FOMO, and hype men running around, on fumes, trying to figure out a way to transition their Destiny-built channels into the next big game to sustain the bag. If you need further evidence, just look at the sheer numbers of large Destiny 2 content creators playing other games more than ever. These big streamers would shit out Destiny 2 content like a bull on laxatives. Now that is no knock on them, as it is probably a smart business move, but with an exodus, even they know this game has more days in the past than it does ahead. Content diversification with large Destiny 2 streamers is a thing now. Once considered taboo, it is now the norm. Go to Twitch and see how many different games they're trying to play right now, hoping to find a niche like Destiny 2. I believe that creators will all be doing multiple IP games, streams, instead of prioritizing one IP. It's going to get rough out here. You might not even have to go as far as the big streamers and content creators to see the drop-off. Go to your friends list. Check how many of them were heavily into Destiny 2 and would play more often than not, and how many of them now can't be bothered to load up or have no real interest in doing so. I'll wait. I've seen it with my own friends and fireteam members. We all used to be on just about every day, grinding bounties, nightfalls, exotic missions, doing helps. Now it's every couple of days and mostly after reset that I see the crew doing something. They're not even grinding like we used to, no more 5 to 7 hour sessions. We've all grown older and have adult stuff to do, so there will naturally be some attrition to that. But in talking to my friends, they're just not feeling it. I said earlier that Destiny 2 is just seasonal manipulation, so let me expand on that. Every new season, we get a new artifact and seasonal mods. You're with me so far? Good. Now, here is the kicker. What changes about the core game itself? Now, hear me out on this before you flame me. We have our subclasses: Arc, Solar, Void, Stasis, Strand, and Prismatic. We have received, weapon crafting, build crafting, the usual class exotic armor pieces, exotic weapons, legendary weapons, all the things that make Destiny 2, Destiny 2, right? We have a vault that for most players is just about filled to the 700 item capacity, full of guns that were the god roll weapons 5 seasons ago, 4 seasons, 3 seasons, last season, this season. What makes them less viable now as opposed to when they were the must-have weapon? The seasonal artifact mods. Bungie decides what they want to make hot this season. Void, Arc, Solar, Strand, Prismatic, and now this season, it's Stasis. They change and adjust the TTK on weapons by 0.03 or 0.05% for a 7-second damage window when radiant, etc., etc., etc. We've all seen the twibs, the twabs, whatever you want to call them, buff this, nerf that, rinse and repeat. It's supposed to give us a fresh new feel to the game for that season. Something that was long awaited was finally given to us, but for many, that very rinse and repeat model is not fresh, but all too familiar. Bungie has problems and pressures, mostly of their own making, and they are stretched thin trying to stave off a takeover by Sony. That's an uphill battle in my opinion, a different video for a different time. For years, people have been saying that Destiny 2 is a dead and or dying game. Right now, this looks closer to the truth than just hyperbole. I looked over a bunch of the weapons I have in my vault, which is currently at 668, and to be truthful, I get more fun out of using old weapons and challenging myself to incorporate them into the current content than I do with the new stuff. I do have my set of favorite weapons, just like all of you. Pulse rifle or some type is always part of my loadout, unless a specified weapon for a bounty or something along those lines is required. PvP is pretty much the same: pulse rifle, hand cannon, shotgun, and the more than occasional auto rifle. Summoner, I'm looking at you. But check your own vaults and get back to me with how many variations of guns you have and how many of those you actually use regularly. Do you shard them when the new weapons come out and use those instead? Or do you use them for a bit and go back to your tried and true favorites? I get it. A good portion of the community is going to say, but the artifact mods and the new weapon mods do this, that, and the third thing. But will they do it next season or the season after that? Most likely not. For me, it's all starting to feel a bit gimmicky at this point. The lack of creativity is starting to show in Destiny 2. The game is becoming more manipulation, of numbers than feeling like a game. The actual good content for general PvE has dwindled. Now, I know I'm going to get the efficiency warriors and the like coming down on me and blowing up the comment section, and that's fine. I just think there's something to be said about going through a nightfall or a strike without feeling like you have to speed run through the complete mission because one of the blueberries you're playing with just can't seem to help themselves. Destiny 2 PvE has turned into sword skating speed runs of nightfalls and strikes. People want to get their 3 runs in for the powerful reward and be gone. I do get that you have to maintain a certain speed factor and kill count, to get to that 200k threshold for the Nightfall Pinnacle. I really do, but that aside, it still feels less than satisfying right now. Along with the same strikes and nightfalls. Since Bungie is continually bringing back old weapons and recycling them into this current content, then why not take the time to bring back some of the older strikes into the rotation and give some of the newer players a taste of what made Destiny? I'm sure it would, help with the retention and engagement numbers they and many other studios are so enamored with. I would beg to say that we have more than enough weapons and armor to play the game and be effective, dangerous, and slaying right now. What's needed more than shiny, new seasonal reskinned and Destiny 1 weapons is thoughtfully fleshed out and complete content. Content that includes lore, story, compelling enemies, and reasons to play the game, not gimmicky potions. I have been hesitant to say this, but the content is so watered down right now, it's to the point of being ridiculous. The game was made easier for new players to get on board and not feel overwhelmed. I think they went too far in that direction, and since they are apt to numbers manipulation, they should increase the difficulty a bit more. If you make a really good, to great content, then players will play the game. They will engage through a bit harder challenge longer than what's happening now. The Festival of the Lost and these seasonal events are stale and past their prime utility. Let's be honest here. How many of you who haven't done dual Destiny and gotten access to the exotic, class items played the Festival of the Lost for those exotic class items? It is the sole reason I played Festival of the Lost. The sole reason. I've been playing long enough where the seasonal events don't mean a thing to me. Now, I won't begrudge newer players, wanting to play them, but seeing old refurbished weapons with new perks that are good for a season just doesn't hit for me anymore. It just speaks of plug and play, reskinned nonsense, and you cannot deny the numbers. Yep, numbers that show Destiny 2's player base is dwindling. Whether or not Destiny 3 should have been made or should be made at this point, which it most likely won't, is moot. The content itself needs to be much better. The best content in the game right now, in my opinion, are the dungeons and the raids. You can tell where the effort for the game is just by going into them. Everything else is a trickle-down creation, a byproduct of time to fill. Potions. Really? Potions. I don't care how much Astacross and Cactus like them. They're just a different visual version of artifact mods. Those we already have. Let me know if you use the potions regularly or if you just did the quest to complete it. The whole quest was a clunky mess. People getting soft locked on completing the quest and some still unable to advance the quest any further to date. The loss of staff and the knowledge base they took with them is showing all throughout the game. The sheer numbers of errors, glitches, and bugs has seemed to increase far over what would be deemed as normal by the community. I was doing, or at least attempting to do some story missions with my clan the other day, and we couldn't even complete one because it was bugged, and even after numerous attempts, in Ascent, we could not, advance because of a shield, that would not remove after beating the enemy to grab the orb to access the other rooms. This mission has been out for quite some time, along with this, the same story missions that are needed to complete part of your Guardian rank. At this point, and many other bugs in these missions should be far and few between. Dare I say, this should not be happening. Off to Vesper's Host we went after wasting, time, a good portion of time, of a gaming Sunday afternoon in that, that hot mess. Sad to say, Destiny 2 is not Destiny 2 anymore. We don't get good story-driven content anymore. We get story content based around weak and ill-conceived seasonal activities that fit around watered-down episode vendors. There is much rich lore that could be added as meaningful content to the game. Shout out to my guy, my name is Bife. That guy knows it all. But business is as business does. But you have to be in business to be a business. If Bungie continues down this path, they won't be. Far too many, critically important employees were let go, and it is showing. I feel for those who have remained. Their stress levels have got to be off the charts. The best thing about this new episodic model is, for me, that I have the time to go back and try to complete some past challenges for the completionist in me. Sometimes you just have to make chicken soup out of chicken bits. If you've made it this far, thanks. I do appreciate it. Just for shits and giggles, what's your lifetime triumph score? Type it down below in the comments. We have reached the tipping point. Destiny 2 has lost its luster, its awe, its identity. Destiny 2 is just a glorified DPS numbers comparison chamber. It's no longer the story-driven game it used to be. And with that, it's your time, and I thank you for sharing it with me. Have a great day.